I'm going to get on to why the United States is actually a very, very fragile country that is hanging on by a thread. And I know there's been a lot of doom and gloom videos out there, and this is not one of them. I know I'm going to also bring this up, and this is the nuclear target map of the United States, and this is not going to be the emphasis of this video. And I'll just tell you right from the get-go, why is the United States very vulnerable? There's several reasons, but it's also interdependence and specialized fields. No longer are people a jack of all trades where they can do, say, a little bit of carpentry, a little bit of framing on their house, fix a small engine, fix their car, do some welding, do some plumbing, electrical work, grow some crops, you know, the MacGyver type stuff. Actually, I have a lot of that on my channel too, right? A lot of those skills are lost, especially in the millennial generation, but I do want to give credit to those millennials who are really, there's some of them that are really damn good. I mean, I see videos on YouTube where they're fixing their cars and they're doing various tasks that are pretty damn complex. And there's some millennials that do know their stuff. Generally speaking, they're more absorbed into the electronics, which aren't going to help you in a crisis situation. Now, it doesn't have to be a nuclear situation at all. But I did want to point out this map because this is a very, very, very simple map that, you know, displays the main, you know, California. You know, I don't think California, well, yeah, I guess they would. They got a lot of bases out there. Forgot about 29 Palms or 29 Stumps and all that. I guess California would get whacked pretty bad. I don't think that's Florida would too because of the bases and Nassau. But California would be safe, I think, up in the Sierra Nevada, for crying out loud, you know. But now, there's other corollary reasons why the United States is very fragile. I know they've been talking about the U.S. debt situation, but this is not the main thing. It's the interdependence. It's actually the main reason why our overly bloated, overspending military is actually on very shaky grounds. There's a lot of high-tech weapons with very specialized fields without that much emphasis on the basic grunt. Now, I know in the Marine Corps, at least every single MOS that's out there says that you are basically an 0311 infantryman first, in theory, at least. And they go through, you know, the battle skills training. At least they do it. They go through the motions. The other services, not so much. And that's a dangerous situation because that's actually where the bulk of the U.S. military is. The U.S. debt is now on $21 trillion, and it's going up. And I know Donald signed the omnibus bill and all that garbage, and I know there's a lot of controversy about what Donald is doing, but I can tell you, I think Ann Coulter really sums it up best with him. He's really trying to please Goldman Sachs. He's really worried about what Goldman Sachs thinks of him more than anything. So that kind of tells you a lot of stuff that's going on with that guy. But that's a side note. That's a side note. He's not the worst guy in the world. That's a side note. But it's our interdependence and our specialized occupations that are the biggest danger in the United States. This video is going to be uploaded on both my channels, American Russian Survival and the Synergy 7 channel, for this reason. I don't think I have, well, I guess I do have some very good videos on the American Russian Survival channels, and I also got some just filler stuff, but then again, I really don't know what people know. Sometimes I think this is like, you know, I might put out a video and I think, oh God, everybody knows this. Why am I putting this out? And, you know, there's people that don't know it. Now, I'm going to tell you also, I took the ads off the last about 100 videos on his channel, Synergy 7, just so you can look at the videos. And, you know, I went out there to the car show. I spent all day at the car show, all night converting the videos over and uploading them. I'm not making a penny on them, okay? Just to try to tell you that I'm really doing, yeah, I make a little money on YouTube, but honestly, I'm doing this more to help you guys than anything. And I like doing it because it's fairly wide open as what you can do. You know, if you get into doing your job, whatever it is, you know, whether it's accounting or what, I was always doing accounting, but it's like, that's all you do. I've never been some person that likes to do exactly one thing all the time. I just hope these guys don't get too restrictive on YouTube because it burns me up to the max. But that's another topic. Back here in 1913, they pushed through to the Federal Reserve and also the Income Tax Act. Your President Woodrow Wilson, who was a pawn of Edward Mandell House, and who created the CFR and all that garbage, right? He declared it, he enacted a lot of laws to really control the smaller people. And a lot of people back then in 1913 said, that's nice, I'll go out west. Like, hey, California was great all the way up to the 1960s at least, right? It started going downhill. People say, the heck with this Eastern establishment garbage, I'm getting the hell away from it. Now it's getting to a point where, well, I guess there's a few places you can get away from it. Now, the other side of it is, too, our grid system. Now, our grid system is vulnerable from not just, nuclear attack, terrorist attack, but also from the weather, which we're coming up into the mini ice age. We can have, during the mini ice age, they have different things that happen besides just getting colder, especially in the Northeast and North Midwest of the United States would be the main areas of concentration of coldness. That actually interferes with the grid system, the delivery of electricity across the wires, and also creates an extraordinary demand on power, which a lot of times can't be handled. And then, of course, you got weather problems with heavy snow and ice that bring down, and trees that bring down wires. Now, that could be all localized, but then overall, our grid system is basically overburdened right now. That doesn't even have to be like a nuclear attack or anything. It's overburdened. But as we get into this mini ice age, it's going to be more problematic. And there's another aspect, too. Back in, 1857, they had the Carrington event, which was a solar flare. Now, what happens during mini ice age is there's less sunspots, and there's also more geological activity where there's earthquakes and volcanoes. And there's also more solar flares that could be affecting the Earth's atmosphere and affecting the grid system. Like if we had the Carrington event of 1857 happen today, the whole grid system would just be fried. And the main parts that run the grid would not be able to be reinstalled. Like in other words, maybe you could put like a bunch of little generators in there or something. But these big specialized generators, they're like one-off things that just last for decades. You couldn't replace them that easy. And the point I'm making is that since everybody's got this specialized occupation and they don't know how to do all these other things, you could be an expert. I remember the suits are going to have a problem. Like I remember when I was doing accounting, I had to come up with, I came up with some novel ways to save, the industry. That was, the guy that was working, the former Russian colonel that was down here. He was a former Russian colonel. I mean, right out of the Marine Corps. I'm working for this guy. And he was getting financed out of California, but they were keeping all the information in phases on the accounting records over in California without specifically saying what's going on with each, project, But they did have them labeled by job number. What I did was I called up the MIS guy over there, the Management Information Systems guy, and it was on a FAST system, the Fixed Assets Scheduling Technique. That's what it was called, on an IBM AS400. And I was able to download all these ANSI text files, and from there I wrote a Visual Basic program that put them into spreadsheets that could be uploaded into tables that I made an Access database, which gave them a whole entire analytical accounting system for all the jobs that were under construction, what the profitability was on various types of projects, and where he was making money and where he wasn't making money. It was a detailed analysis. Later on, I actually did on the most complicated builder software there was. I installed it pretty much all myself and wrote specialized reports, plus actually tapped into it with Access database systems to write further specialized reports. And I was like, even though I don't have all the initial credentials after my name, like CPA and all this garbage, I replaced so many CPAs and people that have all these specialized degrees, not just MBAs and stuff, but also they have special taxation degrees. I replaced so many of them. You wouldn't believe it. Because it comes down to like, and I think a lot of that that talent comes down because I have a broad range of experience and I can apply common sense to, things that are in the office. People are only book smart. They seem to lack what's the meat of the problem. So that's another situation where, even when you're dealing with specialized fields, when you have a broader knowledge, you actually do better in your specialized field. Now, one area where you can really do well, no matter what happens, is if you're in agriculture, because agriculture is absolutely essential. And as a matter of fact, if you know about agriculture, you pretty much know all the practical things on how to build or irrigate, get water, shelter, make shelters, because a lot of times that's all applicable to when you're growing crops. That's one area that if you're only specialized in farming, you're going to be fine. Now, one of the main problems, too, is also going to be medical. For the most part, many medical people are very, very specialized, and they don't know, like, the old school type medicine. I put out a lot of this old school type medicine on this channel, and actually I put out a lot about that Zapper, and I do not want to, sometimes people think I'm just selling zappers. I am not, man. That thing, I was not freaking sure about that thing for a number of years, and after a while, I started picking up that little zapper box that Zapper sells. That thing, I'm glad I got a bunch of the extra ones of those because I'm going to consider that absolutely essential. I use that every day for like 8-10 hours a day, for crying out loud. It knocks out all the microbes and boosts my immune system. I don't seem to ever get sick, so once in a while you might hear me cough on a video because my throat is getting dry from talking, but that's not sick. Now, even with the medical situation, a lot of people are so specialized. Like you can have, I work for a hospital, and say, for instance, they just read graphs, or they just only do this, or they only draw blood or something. They don't know a lot of other things. Back in the day, back in the early 1900s, a nurse would have known a lot. As a matter of fact, I remember back in, my mom telling me, back in the Italian, well, actually it was a Russian neighborhood that my Italian family lived in. It's a Russian neighborhood, believe it or not. Old Mrs. Weinbaum was the one that was the go-to medical herbalist. Nobody went to a doctor. They used to go to old Mrs. Weinbaum. She used to say, take this, take that. That's all they did in the neighborhood. You don't have that today. See, specialized knowledge, and without having access to all these herbs, I have a lot of different herbs and colloidal silver and garlic and things that are antimicrobial besides just the zappers. That's very important. But doctors today are very, very specialized. Even like doctors that treat patients for, I don't know, cancer or something. Maybe they're very specialized in that one area. They're not going to know how to, dress a wound as well or something, things like that. The people that are probably going to survive their best are going to be the people like the Amish up in Pennsylvania, and also the more rural people like you might find in the mountains of Appalachia or in Montana or even in the deserts of Nevada and Arizona. People that are more away from the major cities, that are more working their own lands, even if they're not a rancher or a farmer per se, but if they know how to, they own their own property, have to maintain it, and they're not one of these people that own their own property, have an HOA, and they have a gardener landscaper come and with an irrigation system, but I mean, they really do their own stuff. Those kind of people are probably going to survive much, much better than everybody else because they have overall skills. They don't have skills that are interdependent and specialized. Interdependent skills and specialized skills are great when you got the whole matrix all working together. But as soon as you have, once you're missing one part of that, it's like everything falls apart. It's like even if you're somebody, it's almost like building an engine in a factory and you know how to build every single part except for the camshaft and the lifters, well, guess what? The engine's not going to work. I mean, it's a stupid example, but you know what I'm saying. But that's the problem. People are very, very specialized and very, very interdependent. As a matter of fact, more backward countries that are third world countries, quote unquote, and more underdeveloped, if there's a major problem in, I mean, it may not just be, it might not be a global conflict, but I do want to comment a little more on that, but it could just be a major solar flare that brings down the grid system worldwide. That's going to, and, you know, considering what's going on with the debt situation, that could be, it's a problem because people do not understand basic skills. Now, my generation from the 1950s does understand a lot more skills than the generation from the 1990s. There's no doubt about that, generally speaking. Although there are some people that are born in the 1990s that know a lot of stuff. Generally speaking, they don't know that much stuff. But, you know, if you're looking back before the 1950s, going back to the 30s, the 20s, the 10s, and the 1800s, people even knew more back then. You know, I don't know anything about saddling up a horse and breaking a horse to ride and all this kind of garbage. I don't know nothing about livestock and farm animals. You know, I know mechanical stuff, but I don't know nothing about the other parts of that you need to survive. So, but when you're looking at what can happen, and I don't want to, you know, this guy Vladimir Putin, I don't want to say he's a saint, and I don't want to say he's a bad guy. I'm going to tell you one thing. He's a very reasonable guy. He's an intelligent guy. And it looks to me blatantly, patently obvious that they are trying to piss him off as much as possible to start some kind of conflict. And I'm thinking it's almost so ludicrous that I think of it as practically anti-species, for crying out loud, anti-human. It's my sincere hope that the United States and Russia get along, and to tell you the truth, if, I don't know, I try to finagle something if the Russians even actually came here, that I work with them as brothers in arms so that we can rebuild, you know, because I do not believe that, you know, Putin is a guy that wants to start World War III, but they are deliberately prodding him into trying to. They've been trying to. And even under Trump, like if Hillary Clinton got in, I think we'd already be in World War III, for crying out loud. But even under Trump, it seems like it's going that way too. And that is something where one little tip over of any area in the United States will lead to massive gasoline and energy prices, panics at the supermarket buying food, panics at the gas stations, and hoarding of everything. You know, even if it was just one area of the country, the psychological impact would be problematic. And it's like the United States is extremely fragile. If there was, everybody was living like the Amish, of course our GDP would look very bad, but every single one, it would be very difficult to knock out the United States. As it is today, everything's just-in-time delivery systems, everything is, you know, on a computer, which is right now I'm talking on a computer, but I'm trying to give you more, you know, solid information. And do look at some of my videos, even in American Russian survival channels, because there is some gems in there. There's probably some stuff you don't know. Not that I'm trying to push. There's no ads on that channel. And I want to tell you, I think it's around the last 100 videos on Synergy 7. I took the ads off. You want to watch the videos? If I got something good on there, fine. You're not, you know, you're not going to get annoyed with ads. I mean, there's ads on my channel left and right on most of the videos, but the last 100, I took the ads off just so people could freaking, you know, enjoy a little more. But also, besides enjoy, learn. You got to get down to the brass tacks as to what to do in, you know, almost like the MacGyver type of situation. What do you do when you don't have something? How could you make something? How could you get by? You got to know a little bit about everything. And that's where Americans are very lacking. You could have an extremely intelligent person. They could be a highly educated professional, and they don't know a damn thing about 90% of the other stuff that I put on YouTube. Now, I was definitely in a professional field too, but it's like I always kept one foot in the redneck field too at the same time. Now I got almost 2 feet in the redneck field because I'm doing a lot more of this YouTube versus going into CPA firm. But let me put it to you this way. It's very, very vital that you learn a lot more skills and don't be one of these, I hate these freaking people that are panic stricken. The sky is falling every 2 seconds. But it's very important to stay prepared because there's so many things that could possibly, like for instance in Florida, hurricanes and tornadoes can knock out power. I mean, the last time we had Hurricane Irma, okay, my power was only out for about 30 hours. There's people only, I think, about a half a mile from me, their power was out for 9 days. I have 2 generators. I got diesel fuel, I got plenty of water, and I got food. So it didn't bother me. Those people that were the power out for 9 days, they suffered. That's just with a hurricane. In California, you can have earthquakes that can interrupt the gas supply. There's a lot of different things that could possibly happen. There's hurricanes and there's floods that happen in South Carolina. They had the largest flood in 100 years in South Carolina a couple years ago. It was like a record, all-time record. Knocked out bridges on I-95, the main north-south corridor. So, I mean, it doesn't have to be the worst disaster in the world to happen. It's like, or you could be living up north and, what's going on. They're having all these record snowstorms, right? Like Boston in 2015 was the all-time record snowiest winter. Well, they shattered the all-time snowiest winter, which only happened 2 years ago. They shattered that again. And I think in New Jersey they busted more records. They busted all-time records. At one time it was in 96, 95, 96. Then they broke that a few years ago. And I think this year they might have broke it. They had 4 major nor'easters in just the month of March with an average of a foot of snow, which knocked out power to hundreds of thousands of residents. So, it's not stupid to prepare. You see, it's not stupid, even if there's not going to be some really crazy thing that happens, because the one time you need the stuff is stupid until you need it. It's sort of like having a spare tire in your car. What do I need that stupid thing for, right? I never get a flat, whatever. But that's, and also, again, the overall picture's not looking good with the U.S. debt clock. I don't know where this is going, man. I don't think I swear to God, these people it's almost like they're deliberately doing this. They're wrecking the United States on purpose. That's what it looks like to me. It can't be that stupid. I mean, that's what's, use a little common sense. I mean, there's so many different ways that the United States is getting torn apart. But then you look at the average American, they're very, very, even the most educated people and hardworking people there are extremely specialized in their knowledge. That's not going to do you much good if that's all you know. You're screwed. You could have an IQ of 145, and if that's all you know is your banking area or something, or maybe your attorney area, or maybe you work in the government or do this, or you work in the medical field and you only have specialized knowledge with cancer or something, it's not going to do you much good if you don't know all the other things. Back in the day, everybody kind of knew a little bit of stuff. And back in the day, electricity was a new thing. I mean, electricity is great, and it's a great convenience, and communication's a great convenience. And electronic storage of information is a great convenience. But, if you can't get at this stuff, and if your electricity goes down, what are you going to do? Right? Like I showed on my videos, a lot of times I heat my house with the old Perfection diesel oil heater, kerosene diesel oil heater, that was patented back in June 17, 1913. I'm old school all the way. But you got to remember, that it's not just a matter of intelligence. It's not just a matter of hard work. You've got to have a broad range of knowledge, and somebody with a 90 IQ that has a broad range of knowledge is going to do far better than somebody with a 145 IQ that has a specialized range of knowledge, very specialized, narrow range of knowledge. And that's, you know, that's just how it's going to be. So make sure you do get up to speed on the basics, and especially with agriculture, or if you're not into agriculture, store a lot of extra food that is 30 years type food, and make sure you have some basic medical skills too, and basic herbal skills that can treat various diseases. I know they'll tell you it doesn't treat diseases because the FDA says it wasn't tested, but some of these herbs have been around for thousands of years in all these different cultures, like garlic, for instance. It works. It works. So, anyway, just stick with the tried and true, and you'll be okay. Over and out.